Hi everyone, it's William with the Grand Duke Dmitri 1921 Diary Series, and we are all the way up to 24th of March. So, a brief recap of the 23rd of March. It was all pretty straightforward. Dmitri and Coco arrived in Menton and found their hotel to be a big disappointment. So Dmitri went right off to Monte Carlo to book rooms there for them for the next day. And yeah, they made an early night of it, and that was about it. So the cast for today are just the servants that they brought with them and a famous Russian opera singer, tenor, by the name of Dmitri Smirnov. Another quite good-looking Dmitri, actually. So I think we should talk a little about our friend's mood. Hopefully you are not or will not find these diary entries a bit on the anticlimactic side, because I think, as I mentioned before, this was not some tempestuous love affair. It just wasn't that at all. And, you know, every person sort of has their own range of emotions and moods. And Dimitri's, on the one end, was, you know, sometimes really deep depression. And on the other end, you know, he could be quite lively and happy and enthusiastic. And he's not on either extreme at the moment. So he's a bit, you could say, sort of languid. He and Coco both seem to be. And in thinking about that, I reminded myself that while he was, when he first returned to Paris from Berlin, he told us quite explicitly that what a hard time he was having, that he was a nervous wreck, that he was in a state of what he called mental exhaustion. And so if he's not sort of on the lively end of the mood spectrum, then that's understandable. I mean, Coco was worried about him. She wanted to get him out of Paris for that very reason, that he was so down and so nervous. So, you know, they're taking things fairly easy, and he's not saying a lot. He's being pretty taciturn about things, and that's the way he was when he wasn't in a particularly great mood or high spirits. But yeah, he's doing fine. So let's dive in. It's the 24th of March, 1921, a Thursday, and he locates it as Monte Carlo Riviera Palace Hotel. Okay, we got up quite early in Menton. I slept very well, but apparently Coco suffered terribly from mosquitoes, and overall the place just wasn't to her taste at all. We had coffee, and after settling the bill, got in a car and went straight to the Riviera Palace in Monte Carlo. Our rooms there were already prepared. Our people, Coco's maid and my Piotr, arrived only around 12 o'clock. I went into town before lunch to find out if there was any mail for us at the Hotel de Paris, but there wasn't. I ran into Smirnov, the tenor. I lunched upstairs with Coco at the hotel, and then we went wandering around the garden. The sun was shining, but it wasn't as warm as we would have liked. We had both tea and dinner upstairs. Afterwards, I wrote letters. So when he says upstairs, he means that in their rooms at the hotel. They didn't go down to the restaurant. They had it brought up to them. All right, so I tried to find out something about the Riviera Palace, and I believe I succeeded in doing so, but I'm still confused about it, because if you look it up online, there's some reference to it being in Nice. There's some reference to it being in Menton. There's no reference to it being in Monte Carlo. And I just don't know my geography of the Riviera. I've never had any reason to learn about that. And it, I guess, is sort of maybe equidistant to these various places. It is now, it's condominiums and apartments. But at that time, yeah, it was a grand hotel, and it was particularly known for its beautiful park. And so that would confirm that this is the right place, the fact that Dmitri and Coco go out and spend some time in this lovely garden attached to the hotel. Okay, so yeah, when he says that, so poor Coco, she had trouble with mosquitoes. If apparently Dmitri didn't. If I'd been there, I would have had trouble with mosquitoes as well, because mosquitoes just prefer certain people, and it's not a compliment for sure. And apparently Dmitri was one of those lucky people who didn't have trouble with mosquitoes. So I don't know if they left a window open or what the problem was, but there were mosquitoes. And then Dmitri tells us that overall, the place just wasn't to her taste at all. And I don't know if he means the hotel, which neither of them liked, or if he means Menton. But it's just weird that he says we went straight to the Riviera Palace in Monte Carlo, because Monte Carlo was the only place that I couldn't find any reference to there being a Riviera Palace hotel. Oh well. I'm still curious about what car they're using. You know, did people rent cars back then? Or when he says they got in a car and went to Monte Carlo, does he simply mean that they took a taxi? Or hired a car with a driver? I don't know. So we find out what servants they have with them. They're not bringing staff with them. They just have, Coco has her lady's maid. Dmitri has his faithful Leporello, as he sometimes calls him, his servant Pyotr Sevodnya, his valet. And so certainly, you know, they're doing tasks themselves, like going to, Dmitri was the one who drove to Monte Carlo or wherever and made the arrangements for the hotel rooms, and now he's the one who's going out to pick up the mail. And so apparently they're having their mail sent to the Hotel de Paris, which is where Dmitri stayed. If I'm not mistaken, that was the hotel that he stayed in back in January, when he and his sister and their friends, the Polovtsovs, were all in Monte Carlo. He stayed there, and sorry, I'm flipping this thing around. I shouldn't do that. Why did they not want to stay there this time? He seemed to like it, but maybe, again, because of this incognito that they were trying to keep. So while he's out picking up the mail or discovering that there is no mail, he runs into Dmitri Alexeyevich Smirnov, who was still a young man, about 9 years older than Dmitri, so that would have made him about 39, 38. And he was quite an opera star in Imperial Russia. He had been at the Bolshoi in Moscow from 1904 to 1910. So Dmitri clearly knew him. And yeah, they recognized each other. Presumably they said, hello, how are you? And apparently that was that was it. I mean, if he was in another mood, then Dmitri might have told us more. So yeah, he may well have seen Smirnov perform when he was a boy in Moscow. And otherwise, he might have seen him later, because in 1911, Smirnov moved to the Mariinsky Theater in St. Petersburg and was the big operatic tenor there until 1917. Then he left Russia, although he would end up going back in 1929 for a tour, not permanently, but to tour Russia as a performer. And that was a brave thing for him to do, if you ask me, but I guess he had enough fame. And then, interestingly, he ended up taking Estonian citizenship, and he retired to Latvia. He lived in Riga at the end of his life. He died there in 1944. And it's, it's interesting that he really wanted to be close. He wanted to be within the boundaries of the former Russian Empire. So, yeah, I mean, again, Dmitri and Coco, they're being kind of just languid and trying to be incognito, so they don't go out to eat, they don't go to the casino, they have their meals in their rooms, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And in the next diary entry too, it's a very low-key kind of existence, and they each are going to have their own activities that they do in the morning and during the day. They could almost be a couple of retirees, they're at the low season in the south of France, and we will find out at least we'll find out what Dmitri does during the day. Do we find out what Coco does during the day? Maybe, but they kind of go their separate ways, and then they spend the evening together. So yeah, Dmitri is recovering from this state of nervous frustration and taking things easy, and it's great. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just it doesn't make him very descriptive or effusive in writing his diary entries. But it is what it is. That was the life he was leading, and if you're interested in what the relationship was like with Coco, you can see that it was very low-key. It was not based on excitement. And maybe we'll find out what it was based on, if they really, if they really came to care about each other. We'll see how much Dmitri is willing to tell us. All right, I'll see you next time, I hope. Bye.